Welcome back to Crypto Zones, peer-to-peer financial empowerment, hashtag love all, serve others. How to speak Bitcoin, number 4. Cypherpunks in Prehistory, part A. In this video, I'm going to have, just take a look at a $100 bill next time you get one of the newer ones. If you look at the right-hand side there, specifically the gold quill, the feather quill, and the gold ink pen. Can't see it very well on this, but right behind there is wording that I'm going to put out here in a 2-minute and 34-second oration by former President John F. Kennedy. It takes into context essentially all of that writing that's on that $100 bill, interestingly. And then, in doing a deep dive on the prehistory of Bitcoin, and you really had to look at the cypherpunks. I'm going to mention 9 of them or 10 of them right now. Julian Assange of WikiLeaks fame, Timothy C. May, who did the mailing list, David Chaum, an exceedingly important character who developed DigiCash, a hero. Satoshi Nakamoto, of course, who launched Bitcoin itself. Hal Finney, who developed RPOW, or reusable proof of work mechanisms. He was a computer scientist and cohort of Satoshi Nakamoto. It's understood that he's the recipient of the first Bitcoin. Satoshi sent him 10 Bitcoins. I believe it was about a week after Bitcoin launched on January 3rd, 2009. He has since passed away. Adam Back, who developed a form of, it was called Hashcash. John Gilmore, who developed the mailing list. Nick Szabo, who's a computer scientist who developed BitGold and practically was able to launch a Bitcoin type computer algorithm. It never did get off the ground. Wei Dai, I may not be pronouncing that right, W-E-I-D-A-I. He developed B money. And then, actually, there's one coin that is called DAI, D-A-I, which was named after him. Phil Zimmerman, who had a lot to do with encryption. But so there were these different types of money that were being developed, and they were named eCash, DigiCash, B money, BitGold, Hashcash, and none of them really ever got off the ground until Satoshi launched Bitcoin. And in the early days, Satoshi was emailing Gavin Andresen, and then eventually, I think it was in 2011, so it was launched 2009, and very early in 2011, he kind of handed over the reins to Gavin Andresen to oversee, and he said he was going to pay attention to other things, and he was going to probably not have much to do with it, and we haven't heard from him since. And the Bitcoin Foundation, Charlie Shrem and Roger Ver were parts of that. And then early on, some very important people were Trace Mayer, who's a lawyer and an accountant, I believe, but he was a very early adopter. He says he had Bitcoins as early as 25 cents. Andreas Antonopoulos is a seminal figure, just an aficionado in the tech industry. Barry Silbert was very early on. He has now developed into DCG, Digital Currency Group, which does have the largest amount of institutional ownership of Bitcoins in the GBIT, the Grayscale Bitcoin Investment Trust today. Simon Dixon, who has Bank It to the Future, he was a speaker at the first Bitcoin conference, and he published a book that is the first public reference of Bitcoin, I understand. Max Kaiser, an economist who has been a very early adopter. Tim Draper was an early venture capitalist. There's a gentleman I missed here, Ross Ulbricht, who started the Silk Road, and he has since been charged, and he's serving 2 life sentences in prison for a first offense, a non-violent offense at that, but just as an anecdotal note. But I'm going to start on with this 2-minute and 34 segment of John F. Kennedy here. And it is an oration of the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration essentially justified the independence of the United States from England and King George. They listed 27 colonial grievances against King George III, and they asserted certain unalienable rights and natural and legal rights, giving them the right to revolution. And in saying these things, I'm not suggesting that there should be a revolution. The reason why in deep diving in Bitcoin and cryptos and the cypherpunks and the early, the genesis of that, I looked at some of the early writings of some of the aforementioned people, and there was a lot of writing being done in the 70s having to do with encryption. I mean, previous to Bitcoin, encryption was only used by the military, and as you could well guess, so that they could code or decode messages, and it was highly a big part of security for military forces in wartime, understandably. But once the 70s started to come, then there was more people trying to develop encryption as a form of privacy. And so then from that nuanced frame of mind and reference and movement came the cypherpunks, and they realized, and they pretty much believed that the only way to protect the right of privacy or free speech was to be able to encrypt it and decode it, or code it so that it is unhackable, and in that way protecting our First Amendment rights of free speech. In 1791, in the constitutional amendment, the First Amendment of free speech, it mentions the right for them to keep private papers and stuff. But if Bitcoin or the internet was available back in 1791, it's a logical progression of that right, that we have the right to possess digital or internet-based papers or information. And really that is, for a casual observer of Bitcoin and cryptos, so many who don't know much about it, they think of it in a negative or a clandestine or kind of a illegal or dark way, and that although there are some of those nuances about it, really true depth of the reasons why it is developed, and one of the main reasons for its actual value is that it helps to ensure, it doesn't actually ensure privacy, but it is definitely a independent economic monetary value expression. And as a matter of fact, in Bitcoin, in Satoshi Nakamoto's white paper, the front page literally says peer-to-peer. I'm sorry, Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So it was invented to be a transactional system. Now today, at the present state of affairs, Bitcoin's market cap as of today is at about 255 billion. The total market cap of cryptos as a whole is 413 billion, so it's closing in on $500 billion. Back in January of 2018, December of 2017, the actual market cap of cryptos as a whole was over 800 billion, or almost a trillion. As I remember, it was 800 some billion. So even at 1 trillion, the total market cap does not eclipse. It's really a drop in the bucket, just a drop compared to the rest of the traditional financial and economic world and the market caps that are there. It's estimated that there's 80 to 100 trillion dollars worth of commerce that it has a market cap out there. Gold itself, I estimate at about 13 trillion. But what is beginning to happen is Bitcoin as a whole is really widely regarded as a alternative investment. The Fidelity Digital Assets Group, Digital Currency Assets Group, they published a paper, two of them now, that have to do with the Bitcoin thesis in their mind, where they referenced and asked for opinions from many financial and economic experts and trading aficionados and economic highly regarded individuals in thought and theory. And they pretty much, at this point, ascertain that Bitcoin is an alternative investment. It is vying for what they say it would be an asset class. Now, in my mind, Bitcoin is an asset class, but the only reason why it's not technically, from the traditional financial world, regarded as an asset class is just because of its small market cap, which is, as I mentioned, 254 billion today. And it's crazy to think of that as a small asset or a small market cap. But that's what it is comparatively. And but even though it was invented as a transactional or as a peer-to-peer transaction system, it has at this point become a revered and highly regarded store of value, although it is also a transactional, a peer-to-peer money. It's more highly regarded as a form of store of value. Now, as it gains market cap and as it gains popularity and gets up to, say, $1 trillion, 5-10 trillion, I think it will very easily get up to $1 trillion in total market cap, just Bitcoin alone, by the end of next year. It's probable. It's more possible that it'll do that than it won't. And so then we're looking at the total market cap of all cryptos becoming multiple trillions. And then as that begins to happen, well, it's happening right now. Institutional investors are coming in. Also, central banks are vying for digital currencies, not cryptocurrencies, but currencies that can exist on the internet in a digital form, to be able to participate with some of the things that are happening globally with the transaction of large sums of money. Just yesterday, there was $1.17 billion in Bitcoin that was transacted in 2 transactions. And the total cost of both of those transactions together was $3.89, if I recall the article. It was under $4. But so I'm going to get on to the reading by President JFK, former President John F. Kennedy, right now, and please listen in.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty, to throw off such government and to provide new gods for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
Let facts be submitted to a candid world. I love that. So in summation, please look forward to the next video on how to speak Bitcoin. That'll be number 5, and it'll have to do still again with prehistory in the site, more specifically the cypherpunks. Please click on the playlist there. Hashtag love all, serve others. I just want to sum it up that really Bitcoin does not represent a revolution, but it represents standing up for the right to have freedom of speech, and money truly is a form of communication. I wish you well, I wish you wealth, I wish you health. Until next time, peace.